management has been a consistent part of my career. And that was obviously interesting to us. You are an economist by profession, so maybe you can take this opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, but also highlight from having that interest in election management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to you and to the panelists for this opportunity you've accorded me to be here. I've had an interest in politics and governance from way back as a young boy, and I think my first exposure was the stories we would get from our parents, some of the encounters they had growing up. My mother was in part of the school choir that had prepared to sing for the president in 1969 in Kisumu, when he had gone to open the Russia hospital. And we all know the story of the chaos that broke out. And when we were young, she told us that if she didn't make it, we wouldn't be here. And that stuck with me for a long time. The books I read that my parents taught exposed me a lot to Kenyan governance and politics. I won't list them for now because of time, but some of them, like the Kenyatta Succession by Philip Ochieng, amongst others, really informed me. So when I joined the university, Moi University, to study economics, it was because I did have an interest in the political side of economics, because as you know, economics is about sharing resources. And the good thing with economics is that you are able to then branch into different things. But even within campus, I did a lot of my governance and politics there. But the break that brought me into the career of governance was in my third year, when we invited the new Transparency International CEO to come and speak to us in the university. And I was an official of the Economic Students Association. And after that session, we had lunch with him as officials, and he invited us to apply for internships, or an internship. I think it was about 2 slots that were available. And we did apply. I think many others applied from other places, but I was honored to have gotten accepted to be Transparency International Kenya's first intern in 2001. This was a time when Transparency International was doing, or just about to do, cutting-edge governance, anti-corruption, public policy research. And I was privileged to be part of the team that did the first Kenya Bribery Index, which caused a bit of a stir in the political space. And this was basically a study that got the perceptions of the public from their interactions with public services in different agencies, and the kind of service delivery that they got. And being in TI for those 4 months, again, was really a very gripping moment for me, that when I went back to complete my final year, I was again invited back by TI on a short-term basis to continue with the research assistance that I was doing. And this was then as the 2002 election was approaching. We did a very minimal kind of observation of the 2002 elections then, and I spent another 4 years at Transparency International Kenya doing a lot of the research, combing through a lot of reports like the Public Accounts Committee and Public Investments Committee reports, doing studies around public collections and the role of politicians on that, amongst many others. And transitioning from TI after about 4.5 years of doing anti-corruption and governance research, I knew that by then that really I want to be in this space of what you could call political economy. And I did another 2 years working for a parliamentary program that exposed me to the legislative side of governance. And it was an intense 2 years, the last 2 years of the 8th Parliament, 2006 and 7, and that exposed me again to how Parliament works and the role of Parliament in governance. And at the end of 2007, the 2007 election that came and went, I joined in January 2008 the Embassy of Denmark, where I did another 8 years. But I joined at a time when the country was in that difficult transition of the post-election violence in 2007, but came in at a time when the embassy, alongside other development partners, came in a very strong way to provide technical support to what we knew as the National Accord, which rewired the whole governance system of the country. So this is a period where we had the Kriegler Commission and the Waki Commission, but also, processes set up to lead us to getting a new constitution. So the Committee of Experts helping the new interim independent electoral commission to set up alongside its boundary commission counterpart. I was part of these processes from a technical support side, which continued on into the 2013 elections, which by then found that I was appointed chair of the donor group on elections. And the donor group on elections brings together development partners who had a programmatic interest in elections and supporting different agencies, both state and non-state. This again gave me a front row seat to dealing and working not just with the Electoral Commission, but with other stakeholders in the electoral process. And after that, after the 8 years I did with the embassy, which again exposed me to other different parts of governance. So I had a very intense immersion into working with the judiciary, working on human rights with the civil society, and working on devolution. I transitioned to where I am now, which is the British High Commission, again for the similar kind of work with a bit more focus on devolution and elections in 2016. And I had a bridging period there of about 5 months where I consulted for the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, again giving me a private sector perspective of governance and how the private sector sees governance and engages in governance and elections. And in the last 5 years, I've been with the British High Commission. I've also had the chance to continue with that work, now more in devolution in a deeper way, and then also with the electoral process. So that's my journey. That's my career journey that has allowed me to be exposed to the governance and the public policy and political economy of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Con. Have you applied for this position before?
Yes, I have. I should have mentioned that. I applied for this position in 2011, and this was when the IEBC had just been formed, and I was shortlisted at that time. I think we had about 400 applicants and about 40 shortlisted. Yes, but I wasn't successful. Thank you.
What has kept you motivated enough to apply yet again?
Madam Chair, I believe that the electoral management body that we have is the only one we have for the kind of work it does. And I've got a passion for governance, I've got a passion for politics and public policy, and especially the electoral process in Kenya. I've watched it grow, I've watched where it has come from, and I feel that 10 years later from the last time I applied, I'm more mature, I'm more knowledgeable, and I felt that let me come in now with a more with a better prepared, more aware kind of sense to then put in my application. So I still feel that I would be able to serve the country in this role and position.
Thank you so much, Con. Are you a registered voter?
Yes, I am. I am a registered voter.
And where did you vote in the last election?
I voted at Bora Primary School in Westlands constituency.
Thank you so much, Con. I'll now ask Mr. Morris Kimuli to ask you a few questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Osendo,
Yes.
Are you a farmer?
Sorry?
Are you a farmer?
A farmer?
Yes.
Not a serious one.
Not a serious one.
Yeah.
But I know you studied agriculture in primary school at least.
Yes, I did.
You know, there are these animals that have more than one stomach, chambers in their stomach, and they are called ruminants.
Yes.
You know that?
Yes, I do.
How many chambers does a cow have?
I think it was 4.
You're right.
I'm right, thank you.
I had to call my daughter in the morning to confirm that. I'm glad you know.
Thank you very much.
You know, sometimes we ask general questions to know whether you are aware of your environment.
Yes.
Now, when you look at, I have seen that in your CV, you have had interactions with the Electoral Commission, the IEBC. Now, when you look at the structure of the IEBC, how would you say it respects devolution in the execution of its mandate?
Okay. The IEBC structure respects devolution in that it's devolved. They have a devolved structure, if I may start from that. So the IEBC has 17 regional offices, which brings together groups of counties, but then you'll also find them in all the 290 constituencies, with a presence and an office in those 290 constituencies. I think that would be how I would see that they respect devolution.
In terms of the legal structure, do those devolved units exercise independent final authority? And if so, in what circumstances?
During the elections is when I think these structures, especially the constituency offices, have a sense of autonomous independence decision making. And this is because during the election, the constituency returning officer is the one who declares results for the ward representatives and the members of the National Assembly at that level. That, in my view, gives that office and that level of the commission a sense of autonomy. But in their general management and running and day-to-day running, I think there's still a bit of the reporting lines that need to be maintained between the devolved offices and the Secretariat.
Thank you very much. We looked at your response to the case study that was written. And you said something exciting. You said some of the solutions, and you are commenting on funding. You said some of the solutions may require additional funds. Engaging with the Senate and the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committees and the National Treasury. Now, how does the Legal Affairs, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly and the Senate play a part in funding of the Commission?
These two committees, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate and the National Assembly, the role they play is that they receive the reports from the Electoral Commission. They receive the annual reports from the Electoral Commission, and they engage quite a lot with the Electoral Commission throughout their work. So at the onset, these two committees are the first port of call for the Electoral Commission, and they do have a deep and keen sense of how the Commission works, the challenges that the Commission does face, and even within the structure of the sectors allocated to these committees, the Electoral Commission falls under them.
Now, are you saying that the Legal Affairs Committee, you know, the Senate and the National Assembly each has a Legal Affairs Committee?
Yes.
Are you saying that even also the Legal Affairs, and just the Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate is involved in this process?
The National Assembly one is the one that has the statutory mandate when it comes to the appropriation process for the IEBC. But the Senate committee does engage with the IEBC But in terms of the funding and the money, it's the National Assembly that has the first and probably the key role for that.
And what is the role of the Budget Committee?
In the National Assembly?
Yes. With respect to funding, you've talked about the Legal Affairs Committee.
Yeah. The Budget Committee considers the full budget estimates across the public sector, and that includes the IEBC's allocation and appropriation. So the Budget Committee has an oversight over the whole public sector, and that would be its role.
Okay, thank you. And you then talked about the National Treasury, and I just want to take you to Section 19 of the IEBC Act, and it says that all administrative and other expenses of the Commission shall be a charge on the consolidated fund. What does that mean, and what is its significance with respect to the mandate of the Commission?
The consolidated fund, you'll find that in the Constitution and in statute, the key constitutional commissions and independent offices have their funding coming from the consolidated fund. This protects the commission's funding and gives it a secure or a sense of security that they will be able to obtain or get their funding, because the law then provides that the constitutional commissions and independent offices and other key remuneration for state officers must then be charged to the consolidated fund.
The reason I ask is I'm looking at this section that provides for security of remuneration, gratuities, pensions, and other recurrent, expenditure of the Commission. But we have fundamental capital required for the running of the affairs of the Commission, particularly the question of funding for the election. Is that secured? Because that is not included under Section 19.
Is it secured? I think we see if you follow the funding that the IEBC gets, we see a certain trend that to answer your question may tell us that probably the funding for technology and such investments are not entirely secured. One is that there's a spike in the amount of money going to the IEBC from the Exchequer during election years. But in between election years, you just see the bare minimum being funded to just keep the commission going. I think for me that communicates that it's likely that the funding for investments such as technology may not be entirely secured. We have seen in the past a lot of negotiation taking place to get additional funding for this, again, which I think communicates to us that this funding is not secure.
Thank you very much. So if we move on, what would you say, let me ask it differently. When you look at the law, where, apart from allocations by Parliament, what other sources of funds does the law provide for with respect to the Commission?
Apart from allocation to Parliament, the law provides for donations. I think the law uses the term donations, which could be funding that would come, for example, from development partners. The law also provides for revenue that the Commission could accrue from.
Let me just focus now on the donations, and this is Section 17 of the IEBC Act. Before we come to the donations, do you think the Commission has power to borrow? It's a corporate entity under the law. Can it borrow? Borrowing is not one of the sources of funds that are listed under Section 17.
Yeah.
But can it borrow money to carry out elections and to fund its activities?
I think it can. I think it's a conversation.
Does it have that power in law?
I'm not sure if it's in the law, but I think generally such agencies are able to enter into negotiation with the National Treasury to borrow.
So if you are a commissioner, and the government did not fund, and there were no donors to give you money, do you think you would approach lenders, tell them, give us, these billions of shillings for us to carry out this election?
If government didn't give money, and if development partners did not also give money, like you mentioned, I think borrowing would be a last resort if I was a commissioner. Very, very last resort.
What is the difference between borrowing and receiving donations? There are no, where I was born and brought up, there are no free gifts. I don't know about where you come from. What's the difference between borrowing comes with collateral?
Yes.
A donation, a gift, may come with some conditions. And I'm asking this with respect to Article 249 of the Constitution that says funding. Parliament shall ensure sufficient funding to the Commission.
Yes.
And it says that independent commission shall ensure the sovereignty of the people. So do you think this aspect of receiving, donor funds to fund our election affects our sovereignty as a people and is an indication of the failure by Parliament to allocate funds?
First of all, I think for Kenya and looking at our elections in the past and where development partners have come in to help, development partners give such a very small amount of funds. And two, you'll find that they do not even put the funds into the system or the accounts of the IEBC, because development partners largely go for the soft, if I may use that term, the softer aspects of the election support. So whether it's capacity building for electoral officers, whether it's printing manual that will be used by different officers in the process, those are the kind of areas you'll find that development partners engage in. Parliament...
Just because of our time, let me just clarify this so that I can move you to my colleague.
Yes.
Are you saying that there is some money given to the Commission, whether by form of donation or not, which is not put in the Commission fund? Because the IEBC Act creates a fund where all monies by law are supposed to be held if they belong to the Commission. Are you saying there is an informal way of giving money to the Commission?
Mr. Kimuli, no, not an informal way. One, if I'm not wrong, I think that fund was not even operationalized. But two is that some of this, a lot of this development partner support pays directly for some of these costs for capacity building or for training. So you're not talking about money being wired into an account, but you're talking about certain costs being met. This conversation starts, it doesn't just start with the IEBC, it starts way early with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Treasury, where an assessment must be done, a needs assessment must be done together with the government to then agree on what areas can be supported by development partners. The bulk of our electoral process, the bulk of the key election material is funded by the Exchequer and by the Kenyan taxpayer.
Thank you very much, Con. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kimuli.
Thank you, Mr. Kimuli. I'll now request Dr. F.S. Abdallah to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Osando.
Yes.
You have just commented to my fellow panelist here, Mr. Kimuli, that in your opinion, IEBC could borrow as an entity. Could you confirm that?
I said it would be a last resort. I think for me, when Mr. Kimuli asked, I said if I was a commissioner, I would look for many other ways, including cutting costs and rationalizing costs before I made.
Thank you, sir. My question is, can it or can it not borrow as an entity?
I think it can borrow.
So it being the last result, circumstantially, what is normally the election budget?
Sorry,
The
come
election
again?
budget.
Election budget.
Yes, for IEBC to be able to do a fair and transparent elections. What normally is the budget?
I think, give or take, if covering the last 2 financial years that then overlap into the election, it's anything between 30 billion to 40 billion Kenyan shillings.
Thank you. Now, being an economist, I'm sure you're very much conversant with the conditions set up on borrowing. How would you secure those loans? Because the commissioners become employees of the institution. The institution is not a trading entity. How do you intend to secure those loans if you come to the last resort of borrowing?
Dr. Abdallah, this can only be done, if it should be done, this can only be done with the National Treasury in the lead of this process.
Okay. Again, you did inform this panel through our panelist Kimoli that many a times the donors don't give the money, but they support the purchase maybe of the product or the services required for the election process. Am I right?
Yes.
Now, is that correct?
Yes.
It's correct. So that means the donors have got the mandate and the moral obligation to do the due diligence of the products, which many a times come from their country of origin.
If it comes from the country of origin, yes, they have to do the due diligence.
So when scandals like the Chicken Gate comes out, are the donors equally responsible and accountable for such things? Or is it only the IEBC locally here?
Chicken Gate, if I recall, was not a donation. Chicken Gate was a transaction, was a tender process and a process for the commission to go and print in abroad. So this was a purely commercial and transaction and not a donation.
Right. I appreciate that. My question is, the donors,
Yes.
obviously, if they have to purchase items from the country of origin, is it their obligation to even see that they give the IEBC respectable organizations to deal with?
If the IEBC does approach the donor for assistance in due diligence, if IEBC is procuring from a particular country, then yes, I think the donor can step in and work with the IEBC to carry out that due diligence.
Thank you. Now, coming back to your biodata, I read that you have been helping and mobilizing funding for the programs in electoral matters, right? You're also assisting in designing electoral programs and mobilizing funding accordingly. Please tell this panel as to what the SAID programs were all about and which areas were they or do they normally cover?
Thank you. One is in the area of electoral observation. So I've been involved in designing and supporting the civil society to put together teams that would observe the elections. Of course, these are accredited observers by the Electoral Commission. Another program that I've been involved in designing around elections would be on voter education. Voter education is IEBC's mandate. They come up with the manuals for this, but I've been involved in programs that bring together different entities, state and non-state, mostly non-state, that would work with the IEBC, again approved by the IEBC, to carry out voter education in the country. I think I'll give those two as examples.
Thank you. And are you satisfied on the results of your programs and funding?
Yes, by and large, Dr. Abdallah, in the years that I've been involved in elections program, I am satisfied with the part of the work that we have supported or that I have been involved in supporting throughout my career. Definitely, there's a lot of areas of improvement, and I think following every election, an evaluation must take place, and we pick lessons from what we have done in the past, together with other stakeholders, and use those lessons to improve what we need to do for the next election and throughout the cycle.
I'm sure all the Kenyans can hear you and happy about that one of the donors is happy on returns on the investments. There's no comments. That's good. Now, I believe the funding you've been referring to is not from you as an individual, but from the embassies or the institutions you have been working for.
Yes.
Can we confirm that?
Yes, it is.
Right. We thank you for the efforts you've been doing here. Now, Mr. Osende, if you are appointed as a commissioner of the IEBC, will you be able to use your expertise and connection to do such programs and engage donors to raise the funding for IEBC?
Definitely.
Which, of course, has been a great challenge to IEBC.
Definitely, Dr. Abdallah. I will use my 13 years of working in the development partner sector to be able to help the IEBC raise further support in the areas that development partners are allowed to and are able to work with the IEBC for. Yes, I will use that network, I will use that knowledge, and I will use that experience to assist the IEBC.
That's called patriotism, which we are grateful for. Mr. Osende, ethical and responsible decisions making in the Commission and its Secretariat is crucial for ensuring credible elections management body. What are some of the measures that can be put in place to ensure that the decisions-making process in the commissions are ethical?
Thank you, Dr. Abdallah. I think to ensure that decision-making processes in the Electoral Commission are ethical, one, of course, would be to ensure that the law is followed in terms of the decision-making process. The electoral space has a lot of laws, policies, and statutes that govern it. And you know, it's, if you miss out on one step, then you know it's easy to be called out for that. So I think for an ethical process, I would ensure that takes place. But two, there are internal policies and procedures that the IEBC has in place for different things. And you know, whether it's a human resource, whether it's procurement, and whether it's any other policy that they have, would be just to ensure that there is an adherence to these policies. Three would be to keep stakeholders and the public informed at every stage of the decision-making process. I think one of the key things that we have lacked in the past, and that has not helped when it comes to, or rather has made the Commission sometimes lose trust, is because people don't know. And not just us as the public, but even those who are part of the electoral process. The electoral process is not just the IEBC. There are very many other players and stakeholders. Keeping them informed, keeping them part of the process, and informing the public, I think, helps in the ethical decision-making process of the Commission.
Yes, Mr. Sende, I appreciate that, and for we've heard it from many that the procurement process, it has been really the elephant in the room for IEBC. How do you tackle that? Because you're going to be one among the seven, and how do you inform the public about this situation? Because in an institution like that, it's the chairperson who talks. How do you do that?
Sorry, Dr. Bala, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
Right, I'm saying you say this can be done, the law in place. I mean, like in procurement, the law is in place, right? But of course, I'm sure you saw the drama between the CEO and this last time. Yes. As an individual, I mean, all your expertise, where you worked with this embassy, ethical is an issue, and you have interacted with these people. How would you do it as an individual?
The procurement.
To see that the law is being followed. So to avoid this bad publicity.
Yeah, I do agree with you that it's been there have been some challenges in the past that have been highlighted in the public domain on procurement, including the clashes we've seen between the Commission and the staff. Procurement is dicey, and again, like you said, some aspects of it are not seen by the public. For me, as an individual, if I was a commissioner, I think from the onset of joining the commission, it would be prudent to make it clear to my fellow commissioners and to the CEO and the secretariat that part of our work really is that we must be above board. I think for me that constant reminder and that constant demand for us to have an above board process in procurement would be the first step that I would take as an individual. Of course, the law is there, the policies are there, and we've seen sometimes these are abetted. But I would also then ensure that we involve any other key public agency that may need to be involved for accountability. The documenting of these processes is also very important, so that there's a very clear trail about how these procurement processes have taken place and who has been involved and what the decisions are, and having these in a place that they can be referred to by the respective agencies, I think would be important.
Thank you, Mr. Sen, and all the best.
Thank you, Dr. Abdallah.
Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Abdallah. I'll now ask Mr. Gideon Solonka to ask you some questions.
Mr. Osendo.
Yes, Mr. Solonka.
Yes, you have cited electoral management as one key strength that makes you a good fit to be a commissioner of IEBC. Now, what is your understanding of elections management from a Kenyan perspective? And what does it entail insofar as IEBC is concerned?
From a Kenyan perspective?
Yes.
Well, election management is the and where IEBC is concerned, election management is the process of delivering, or rather conducting, supervising, and delivering an election or a referendum, for that matter, and this is a process. If you know that you have an election to deliver in 4 years, election management starts way before that, and for me includes the staff you'll hire, the equipment you'll purchase, the timelines that you'll have to keep, and the processes you'll have to do to reach the point where the election is conducted. So I think just the whole management of that process towards the conduct of an election.
Now, what is voter suppression?
Voter suppression. Voter suppression is when a voter's rights are curtailed, or if a voter is unable to exercise their rights or their provided rights. I think that is voter suppression, the curtailing or the inhibiting of a voter to exercise their rights.
Okay, and how is it perpetrated or executed?
One, if it's not easy for one to register as a voter, I think that is one example of voter suppression. So if one is unable to have a straightforward process where they can go in and register and be included in the voter register, that would be a voter suppression. Two would be the inability of the voter to vote. If a registered voter is unable to cast their ballot, and this can be in many ways. They probably cannot reach the center because of an obstacle that has been placed. They've probably been intimidated from exercising that right to vote. I think those would be some examples of voter suppression.
Give me more.
And so for voter being unable to vote, whether they cannot reach the station or whether at the station it could be a voter who needs assistance and they don't get assisted. It could be, again, I said, intimidation or violence around the region or the polling station that the voter needs to access. Those would be examples of voter suppression.
What is gerrymandering as a form of voter suppression?
Gerrymandering. I know I've seen that term many times, Mr. Solonka. It's one of those terms that if you ask to define, I'm not sure I can define it. Yeah, I'm not sure I can define that term, Mr. Solonka.
Okay. How can IEBC deal with voter suppression?
IEBC works with different agencies that can assist it in ensuring that you don't have voter suppression. Some of the examples I gave around accessing a polling station would need the partnership and cooperation of the security agencies, which IEBC continuously does partner with. I think that would be one. Two, ensuring that within a polling station, voters are able to vote, including those who need assistance. I think IEBC does that and needs to continue to do so to ensure that those who need assistance can be assisted.
Now, political party nomination primaries are often perceived as disorganized, marred with technical difficulties, and surrounded by persistent rumors of fraud and manipulation of results. Supposing you become the commissioner of IEBC, what will you do to address this?
One is that political parties are independent entities that are supposed to carry out their party primaries and provide the IEBC with a list of candidates. The law states that parties can request the commission to assist them in conducting their primaries, and if this request comes as a commission, and if I'm in the commission, I think it would be a conversation that we need to have with the political parties to see how they can be assisted. But beyond that, I don't think unless requested, I don't think the Electoral Commission has a very clear or cut out mandate to deal with what you have called the chaos that we see in party primaries.
Are you saying that we do not have laws that address party nominations?
We do have.
Which are these?
I think the Political Parties Act is a main law that covers party nominations. The Elections Act also does mention aspects of party primaries.
Any regulations that govern?
Yes, we do. We have can't remember the exact term, but we do have regulations that govern party primaries. I think it's a subsidiary to the Elections Act, and I think there must be one that's also subsidiary to the Political Parties Act.
You're not sure? Have you interacted with those regulations?
Yes, in the past I have. Some years back, I did interact with them.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough. Now, what is your understanding of an election cycle? And maybe you can give me the key stages that form an election cycle.
An election cycle is the process by which we prepare for, conduct, and audit the electoral process. The election cycle has a pre-election stage, has the election stage, and a post-election stage. And the pre-election stage will. Well, let me start with the election stage. The election stage includes all the preparations that needs to be done for the election to be conducted credibly. We're looking at voter registration. We're looking at party primaries being conducted. We're looking at nominations being done by the Electoral Commission. We're looking at any procurement that needs to be done of materials, be it technology, be it ballot papers, mapping of the polling stations. So that is the election process. Then when you go to the post-election process, it's an evaluation of this election, of the election. So having an evaluation or an audit of how the election went, and that audit usually brings about lessons from different aspects. So whether it's legal reforms that need to be done to improve on what we have or where we've come from, that will be done, or policies that need to be put in place. And then the pre-election.
Thank you, you've answered.
Yeah.
Lastly, how many wards do we have in Kenya?
Wards.
Yes.
We have 1,450 wards, Mr. Solonka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solonka. I'll now ask Madam Elizabeth Mayo to ask a few questions.
Once more, good morning, Mr. Sendo.
Good morning, Madam Mayo.
Okay, when you were giving us your introductory remark, you actually indicated that you have a lot of passion in governance, I'm right?
Yes.
Issues of politics.
Yes.
And what I'm interested in is that you have also passion in electoral process.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So what, in your view, when you reflect back to the 2017 general election, what, in your view, went on well, as expected, and what you, as an electorate, did not meet your expectation?
Thank you, Ms. Mayo, for that question. For the 2017 election, let me start with what didn't go well, in my observation, if it's okay to start from there. I think we had hitches in the transmission of results, and this meant that the technology, while it largely worked, I think at that crucial stage, especially for the presidential results, we had that technology hitch, and I think generally for technology, it largely worked, but you had few cases of episodes where the voter identification kit didn't pick voters who came in to vote. I think you had some episodes even during the biometric voter registration stage that also didn't work for some people, but those were minimal and episodes. But I think technology had hitches that didn't work. Two, I think there wasn't good and adequate and timely communication, especially public communication, coming out in the months or even the year preceding the election, and that builds up. That builds up into a lot of mistrust, a lot of reactive or reactionary kind of processes by the commission whenever questions are asked to them. You had very delayed legal reforms taking place. In addition to delayed legal reforms, I think you had some court cases or some litigation that was taking place that had a bearing on the election that were being decided quite late in the day, which sometimes can be a distraction for the commission. But also the appointment of commissioners 8 months or 7 months to the election, I think doesn't give the commissioners time to just come in and settle and be able to acclimatize and get into the rhythm of working. So for me, those are some of the points of what I think didn't work well. What worked well? On election day, I observed the election and I monitored it, and I had teams around and I was following what other observers are doing. I think the logistics of the election were done very well. And I think this is because of IEBC's experience in this and the ability to get sensitive election material, equipment to all the corners of this country and in a timely manner to distribute them the day before to each of the polling stations and have teams organized around that. And then on election day to administer the election and ensure that up to over 10 million voters are able to exercise their right to vote. For me, that is really one thing that in my view, one important thing and one big thing that I think was done well.
Okay, thank you. You have mentioned that it's like technology had a hitch, and actually it did not work well for us during 2017 election.
Yes.
So in your view, do you recommend that IEBC should enhance the technology they have now, or we should go to manual when we are going for election in 2022?
I think IEBC should enhance and enhance here being probably just ensure that what we have is checked and improved. But yes, a bit of enhancement, because if you go back to manual, manual processes, while they are done in many other countries, I think in Kenya there's still a lot of mistrust for a manual process. So in my view, I wouldn't go back to manual, but I would still see how to ensure that the technology works better.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, still on 2017, I believe you are aware you are here because there's something that happened in 2017 that created an opportunity for you to be here today. You are aware?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, I am.
Kindly tell us what happened.
I'm here today because 4 commissioners resigned from the commission after the 2017 elections.
Okay.
Yes.
So 4 commissioners resigned in a half.
Yes.
And because of that, there is an opportunity for you now to compete for those 4 positions.
Yes.
So what, in your view, do you think created such a scenario?
Of the 4 resigning?
Yeah.
The 2017 elections was a high-stakes election. Let me start from there. I think any election where you have an incumbent seeking re-election, the world over, is immediately a high-stakes election. And 2, you had a situation within the commission where there was, in my view, a lot of mistrust amongst commissioners. And between the commissioners and the staff. I think that environment didn't augur well for the management of the election. But of course, the circumstances we found ourselves in after the election, from my own, outside looking in, you had a very tense period. You had an election that was petitioned in the Supreme Court, a presidential election that was petitioned in the Supreme Court, nullified after that, and the political temperatures were very high. I am not so sure what was going on inside the commission at that time, but if the tensions of what we as the public were feeling just by being outside of that process, I can imagine that there must have been a number of issues that had built up to the election, and that then was the pressure was really high, that may have occasioned the 4 commissioners to resign in half.
Okay, thank you. If by good chance you are appointed as a commissioner and you join the 3 who are already there and the staff who are there, how will you address some of the
I think if I join the commission alongside the others, the first thing would be, and I'm speaking from my own professional experience, I don't know how IEBC does it, but the first thing for me would be just to meet the staff and check if they've got a process where they're able to express their grievances, or to give if they're able to give feedback about their own welfare and how and their working environment. If there's a safe space for them to do that, and if there isn't, because I'm not aware whether there is one or not. Okay. I think for me in my work over the last 20 or so years I've worked, that safe space for staff to be able to feedback, for staff to be able to appraise horizontally and vertically, is really one thing that I would want to see put in place, because it allows them to ventilate, and allows the management and the commissioners to be able to step back and see how can they ensure that staff welfare is important. Because being in the commission could be a job like any other, where you need your staff in a frame of mind that would enable them to come to work and deliver on their mandate. So for me, I would use that to begin to understand what some of these issues that the staff are going through are.
Okay, thank you. Now I want you to have a flashback on what you gave as part of your CV. And you said that you have worked very closely with commissioners and secretariat of IEBC. And in the year 2009 to 2015, you provided technical assistance to them on various areas, including stakeholder engagement.
Yes.
Kindly tell us, what kind of technical assistance did you give, and did it work for them, such that some of the challenges we saw in 2017, did they just occur because they ignored your technical assistance, or it's because of some competence lacking somewhere?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You'll notice that period of 2009 to 2015 had the referendum on the Constitution in 2010 and the general election in 2013. And during this period, of course, first you had, in 2009, you had the interim independent electoral commission. So you're coming from a 2007 scenario. Your electoral commission of Kenya is disbanded, and a new commission has been set up, totally new, under a new law, and with a clearer mandate. And one of the things I and others were involved in was to help this commission set up and start its work. So some of the stakeholder engagement work that I remember we supported included the commission's engagement with civil society, and civil society in this case would be civil society that had a programmatic interest in elections, those who went on to become election observers, those who went on to assist or to work with the commission to provide voter education, amongst other things. I remember we supported the commission's work with the security agencies. So there was a lot of training, if I put it that way, that was done for security officers and for national government administration officers, and we supported that, which of course would be venues and materials, and you had commissioners coming and interacting with these with them, and this was replicated to the 2013 election. Were these lessons picked into or towards the 2017 election? I think there was a bit of a reduction in stakeholder engagement. Sorry?
It's okay.
Okay. I think there's a
I
bit
want you to be brief.
Yes, okay. There was a bit of a reduction in stakeholder engagement towards the 2017 election. That may have been informed by circumstances within the commission. I'm not sure if it's a result of them ignoring the
Okay,
assistance
thank you.
given. Yes.
So my last question to you. We have a serious risk in this country. There is a culture and expectation of handouts. And this is affecting voter education. So if you are elected and you are in charge of voter education, what do you think is the cause of people expecting handouts? The more you give, the more you have more followers. If you don't give, then you don't have followers. And how can you cure it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I agree. This is a problem we have in the country of handouts. It finds a situation where Kenyans are in a very difficult economic space, and politicians are very much aware of this, and are able to take advantage of the fact that a lot of Kenyans will receive these funds or these handouts given to them. This has been perpetuated over time because we've not had a framework to discourage this practice. We've not operationalized a framework to discourage this practice. If I do get appointed as commissioner, I would of course take a keen interest in what I am already seeing taking place, and that is the operationalization of the Election Campaign Finance Act. This could be a deterrent to the handout culture. I don't think it's going to be a cure 100% of the handout culture, but it could be an important deterrent to this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sendo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll now ask the Vice Chair to ask you some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Con, for that session. You have been in the governance area for quite some time, almost 2 decades. Is it almost 2 decades?
Yes, almost 2 decades.
Almost 2 decades.
About 2 decades, yes.
About 2 decades. Okay. Now, and you have been observing, I'm very sure, our challenges in this country in terms of governance. Now, what would you say when it comes to electoral democracy and governance? What did you say are our key challenges? How come, despite all these years, with the resources Kenya has put into laws, I think we have the most elaborate laws in this region when it comes to electoral management, policies, regulations, and all. How come year after, and then a very good constitution, how come year after year, I mean, every 5 years, every major electoral period, we have problems. And some of these problems actually threaten the existence of the nation. And this has become episodic, that every other 5 years, just before the elections, people start thinking of packing and leaving the country because you don't know what will happen next. What is the problem? What is the problem? What are the challenges? Is it the way we act or conduct our affairs? Just please highlight some of what you see as challenges. And then, how do we deal with these challenges? How can we resolve these things? Because even the electoral bodies have been changed over time. We have appointed commissioners upon commissioners. It doesn't stop. What is the challenge?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Top of mind, I think the challenges we have in our governance space. One is just lack of enforcement of the many laws and policies that you have actually mentioned that we have. We have legislated on in our governance space, but we have had in the past a very poor enforcement culture of these laws and policies, and so you see a lot of things being done that affect our governance, which don't go punished. A lot of these things are made to feel like they're normal. It breeds a lot of impunity. So you've got a lot of people, especially those in power, who know that there's some things that we will do and nobody will do anything about it. Or if something is going to be done about it, it'll just be a process which we can kill in the end. And even us, who are not in power, have our own level of impunity, and you see it on the streets when you're driving. When you're crossing the road, nobody bothers to look at the lights to see if pedestrians should stop or go, or cars should stop or go, and people just move. So there's a very huge culture of impunity, and it's because I don't see you getting punished for something, so I'm going to do it because you are not punished. So I won't be punished. And many times I even tell some traffic police, if I see them letting someone pass for something that they stopped me for, I ask them, why didn't you stop that one? So it's a culture of impunity that we have breeded because you've had a lack of enforcement. And of course, the bugbear of our governance has been corruption. And this has affected us in big ways, especially where we have had mismanagement, theft and corruption, and that reduces a lot of the resources that we may require to improve on our governance.
Thank you. Now, Con, if you are appointed, even before I go there, in your professional life, especially as a representative of the donor community, where you handle, it's about resources, it's about funding, it's about money. Have you ever faced a situation that challenges your integrity, that has challenged your integrity, or tested to the point that you almost fell prey to temptations to do the wrong thing?
Not really. If I hear the direction your question is taking, especially where you mentioned, from the background I have in terms of where I've worked and the resources that I handle, I place a huge premium on reputation. I think before anything else, I usually just say, let me try my best and keep my reputation intact. There are if I've worked for agencies that have very strong checks. I know friends who worked for agencies that don't have strong systems, so that in our work we approve funding to go to consultancy firms or to go to NGOs, etc. In a space where you don't have strong checks and balances, and where you give somebody a lot of discretion, it's very easy. And there have been cases out there of being able to benefit from what your employer is doing. My insistence on protecting my reputation, coupled with having worked in two key agencies that I think have very strong systems, has ensured that you don't even think about that kind of temptation. I'm one person who has also been keen on public service, and I know that your integrity as you come into public service is a major issue that anyone in the public can spring up or bring up. So the opportunities can be there, but I think the systems around it do help to curtail it.
Assuming you successfully get appointed to the commission, with that background in mind, and you have colleagues who may not have similar qualities, you're in a situation whereby a tender to print ballot papers
Sorry about that, Con. Members, that was just a test for the fire alarm. We can proceed. There is no danger. I'm sorry about that, Con. I hope you don't lose your stride. Okay, go ahead, VC.
Okay, we are safe. We can continue. Yes, I'll repeat again. Yeah, what I was saying is going by just what you've described of yourself or the way you see yourself, and you successfully are able to join the commission. And a situation arises where the commission is just about award tenders for printing of ballots. We have 3 bidders who have been shortlisted at the final stage, and now a decision needs to be made to pick the final bidder. One of them is a blacklisted company based outside the country, but they are offered the best, the cheapest price, cost in terms of costing. 2 others are based here, but their costing is a bit higher. The commission is highly divided. Most members feel they should go with the cheapest bidder. How would you handle that situation?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You know, at the end of the day, in that scenario, we have to make a decision. The stand I would take from my experience is that, first of all, if anyone is blacklisted, even if it's a cheaper option, from my experience, I wouldn't even consider a blacklisted agency. So my personal stand would be that we look, despite then the high cost, there's a reason why this one is blacklisted, and it will give us even more problems if we go back and hire them based on them being cheaper and saving us some money, but they are blacklisted and they have some history, whatever reason they were blacklisted for. I think for me that is I would rather consider the local agencies despite the high cost, but they're not blacklisted. Meaning, let's give them a chance and see how that would go. That would be my stand. And if there's a division that would then lead to a decision, I would want that to go on record. I believe that would go on record.
Be willing to stand alone to get it right?
Yes, if I'm alone on approving the locals, I'm willing to stand alone. Even if I lose and someone else takes it, and I know at the end of the day there's the collective responsibility of the commissioners for the decisions they take. But I would want to put my voice and place my reasons on the table, even if I may lose that process.
And finally, have you ever been in a situation where circumstances made you consider quitting a job or dropping a contract?
Yes, I've been in a circumstance where I've wanted to quit a job, and I think I eventually did quit, but it was a circumstance that you know made it difficult to work. But I took a while before I I made the decision to quit. I think also, you know, as a young man, you don't just want to walk out of a place without looking at the impact it will have on you, on your career, or even on the work that you're doing. But yes, I have had the instances where I have felt I want to quit in my 20 years of work.
Just a bit of, can you just, some description on the kind of environments?
There's one instance in, and you know, if it's okay for me not to name the jobs, there's one instance in the past where I felt I was in a point in my career. This is probably a very small kind of example. A point in my career where I was just beginning to take off, but I was in a job where we were not allowed to look outside the window, you know, to talk, because we're working with the sensitive agencies. And for me, I felt really this is not going to just make me disappear from the space I've been in for the years I was there. So I think for me that was one reason that I really took time to consider. I think about 6 months before I eventually found something else to do. But another example also really is about the manager that I had in one instance. And for me, it's an office I loved, but I had a very difficult manager, and I had made the decision to leave. Even after the manager had left, I still had, it took a while for that feeling to go, but it was a job I enjoyed, but a very difficult manager that I had. So those would be examples I'd give.
Yeah,
Mr. Achoka.
The commission is a high pressure environment.
Yes.
Especially during the general elections. And the last election we saw 4 commissioners, the first one left, and then 3 others eventually left. How would you tackle political pressures coming from all directions within the commission, where you have to make decisions at the last minute, where you have to, you know, sometimes you step on very many toes, and some of them very powerful toes, where you face threats day and night because of decisions you are making, and you have pressures to push things in one direction or the other. How would you handle that environment?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. For the political pressure that comes with this job, I'm very aware of it. I've seen what commissioners and staff of the IBC have gone through. I would want to start very early. If I get appointed into this role, I would want to start very early, having a very structured and regular engagement with the political class. Now, I know we have a forum for that called the Political Parties Liaison Committee. The one thing that doesn't seem to be working here is that political parties have tended to send officers from the party who don't have decision-making power, who don't have the role or office in the governance of those parties to come in and interact and make decisions. So you find sometimes officers who are sent who are unable to take a decision there, or who are unable to go back and pass on what needs to be done. And many times it looks like that engagement hasn't taken place. I would still work with that forum, but if I realize that we're not getting the decision makers, I would still find a way within the commission to ensure that early enough, in fact, from immediately we get in, that we have a periodic, even if it's once a month, engagement with the political class, make this, where possible, public, so that the public also sees that the commission is engaging with the political class, but also include all the other players in making an election successful. Many times the pressure is on IEBC because we have been made to believe that they are the only ones who are delivering that election. You've got the interior, you've got the police, you've got the National Registration Bureau, you've got the media, you've got the civil society. If there can be a regular forum where we all interact with the political class, to see the timelines of the election through to peer review amongst ourselves, each person, whatever role that each person has, and where are we with this, and how can we help each other. I think this can dissipate even 40 or 50% of the pressure that builds within the Commission.
Thank you, Con.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And now I'll ask Reverend Father Mutia to ask his questions.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Kon, I would want to take a moment with you and ask you a follow-up question from what my sister, Madam Mayo, from where she left. You've been working in very strong and big institutions, and you've informed the decision making in those institutions. Why would you want to move from playing such key role as engaging in funding of our electoral processes and the like, to come and become just a commissioner?
Thank you.
May I have your attention?
I currently have a very good job, I must say that, at the British High Commission. My jobs have made me work closely with the public sector. I've worked in civil society, I've worked in development partners, I've worked in private sector. I would want, it's one thing interacting with the public sector and another thing being in the public sector. I would want to work in the public sector just to begin to appreciate and understand how that place works. But this combines very well with my purpose, and for me, I am living my purpose now, in that my interest and passion for governance and public policy, being able to work in that space now and to be paid for it. I think getting into the commission still keeps me within my purpose of working in a very important part of governance and public policy and the political space in the country. So I'm ready and willing, if I do get appointed, to make that move. But even if I don't, I will continue to work in the space of electoral management from where I am.
Thank you. In your application, you said you had immense experience in anti-corruption, integrity, and good governance.
Yes.
Allow me to ask you just a simple question. Have you ever handled a corruption issue?
Handle a corruption issue? No, because a lot of my work had been more from a research perspective. But even in my personal life, I've not handled a corruption issue. Did you mean like investigate one, or?
I mean, as in, if a corruption issue, has there been any corruption issue reported to you, and how have you handled it?
When I worked for Transparency International, my first job between 2003 and 2006, we would get people writing to us with corruption reporting that they have encountered, and I recall one incident where in 2003, when you have now a new government, a politician from the previous government, came to the office and I was the only one in the office. And he came to complain that all his businesses are now being taken away from him. And this is a politician who we had read in the news, is very corrupt. And I sat there, this young, I don't know, early 20s, first of all awed by his presence, and then wondering, how do you handle this? But when that came, I was able to have him write a statement, which then I lodged with my colleagues. Otherwise, apart from that period where I worked with Transparency International and receiving a lot of the public kind of reporting, which we would then send to the different agencies, there's no other instance I've handled.
Thank you, Mr. Kon. And lastly, many times people take shortcuts to compromise on integrity due to fear of failure, limitations of resources and time. What do you do in such situations so that you maintain your integrity while at the same time ensuring that you do not fail or in the task that is at hand?
I think for the Mutia, if I've understood you, yes, it's very tempting to take shortcuts because shortcuts get you into places faster, or you get kickbacks and etc. I think it's a personal decision. First, I think the issue of integrity is a personal decision, and it takes me back to what the vice chair had asked about you being there, but there could be others who don't have that experience or that thinking. I would still maintain my personal integrity and be able to just say that let's take the route, let's take the long route if we have to, but let this long route be one that then puts me and us as a team and us as a commission in the right standing, because this job as an electoral commissioner is probably one of the most sensitive in the public sector, and anything small can dent or will dent our reputation as a commission, but at the same time then it blinds the people from seeing the good work that you may be doing out there. So for me, it's a combination of both a personal decision but also some kind of a rallying call to the consequences of this that you can discuss with your team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So according to you, there shouldn't be any failure?
No. There's. I mean, we fail many times in the work that we do, in the teams that we work with, but it's how we pick ourselves up if we fail somewhere that matters.
Thank you, Mr. Kon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Father. Kon, we have now come to the end of your oral interview. I can invite you to make any remarks you might want to make to the panel at this time.
All right. That was intense, but just to thank you, Madam Chair, and the distinguished panelists here for the opportunity to be shortlisted and to sit before you and present myself. It's not an easy task that you have before you, but also for us as candidates, it's taken time to prepare and a lot of guts to sit before you. So to thank you very much for that opportunity. I don't really have a question. It's maybe on timelines. I don't know if you have a timeline between when we are done with the interviews on 22nd to when you want to submit. Is there a timeline that you have, that you know?
At this time, I can't confirm we have one. We could maybe reach a decision in a very short time, or we'll take the time we need to reach the right decision.
Okay.
Thank you once more, Kon, for expressing an interest to serve as a member of IEBC. And on behalf of ourselves and other Kenyans, we do appreciate you doing that. We request a member of the Secretariat to escort you. Please ensure you get your original certificates and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll now take a break and resume at 11:30 for the next interview.
Yes.